so wonderful to have you today.
Thank you so much. It's good to be here. I just flew in last night. Hi, guys. You guys seem like you're having so much fun. When I walked through, I was like, there are beauty treatments. Everyone's drinking.
Yeah. Cocktails, nails, done. Success. You're very busy, so we appreciate your time.
Oh, thank you.
Let's talk about the TIG.
Yeah.
So you've said the name represents the moment where you got it. Talk a little bit about that moment.
Yeah, I mean, I think we all have catalyst moments in our life. And for me, when I started the TIG, the namesake for it was after this glass of wine. It's a type of wine called Tignanello, but in the States, they sort of butcher the name and say Tignanello. And it was my first time having a sip of this wine where I wasn't just like, it's red wine or it's white wine. It was a moment of, oh, this is different. Oh, I get it now when people talk about the legs or the body or the structure of something. So for me, it was a pivotal moment because it was seeing the nuance in something that I had never seen before. So the TIG then became my personal nickname of all those aha moments of getting it in a more profound way than you had before. Granted, it was just about a glass of wine, but it ended up transcending itself into something much bigger for me, which is what I've used as a platform for the website.
Anything that has to do with wine. Fan.
Thank you.
You've also said it took a long time to find yourself. We were talking actually a little bit earlier today with Nikki Reed about casting rooms. You're getting basically fired every single day. People telling you no every single day. It's intense. Yes. I want to talk a little bit about your experience in the casting room and your experience as a diverse woman in the casting room.
I mean, I think what's so interesting is, I'm born and raised in LA, so that in and of itself. Are you?
LA.
Oh where'd you go to high school?
Oh wait, I didn't go to high school in LA, but we'll get back to that.
Oh, okay. Wait, tables turn. Now it's like, we could do like an interview for the TIG. Where'd you go to high school? What's your favorite food? No, so look, because I'm from LA, I often say it's like if you're from a small coal mining town, maybe you're going to end up getting into coal mining. I was brought up in the entertainment industry, so it was a very comfortable environment for me. But at the same time, I think what became abundantly clear very early on is that beyond just the nature of how competitive trying to have a career as a professional actress is, because I'm biracial, I was able to get into so many more rooms because they didn't exactly know where they could put me. But with that said, I heard no so many more times than you would if you could only go in for the blonde-haired, blue-eyed girl, right? If you can go in for that role, then maybe you have 5 auditions a week. If you can go in for the exotic Caucasian girl and the ethnically ambiguous girl and the black girl and the white girl and the Latina girl, which at the time I remember there's a breakdown that said, like, it was always like the sassy Latina girl. I was like, oh my God, but I'm not Latina. And I'm really not that sassy either. But because of that, it's a numbers game. And so I ended up going into so many different auditions, and you get the thickest skin of all time because it's very hard to not question something about yourself in those moments when really it has absolutely nothing to do with you. A, it's not personal, but B, whether you get the part or not has nothing to do with you for that role. And a key piece of advice that I was given very early on was, don't try to win the part, just win the room. And I think that can be translated whether you're an actor or you're going in for a job interview. It really, at the end of the day, does not matter if you're going to nail that audition or nail that interview and get that exact job. It may seem like the dream job for you at that time, but at the end of the day, if you make fans of the people that see you in that room, that carries on so much longer than what that job may have ended up becoming for you. And I can look back now and see so many different parts that I was devastated when I didn't book them, or when they were roles that just ended up floundering and ended up on the cutting room floor, or, disasters. We're not going to go down my terrible audition or IMDb Rolodex. But at the end of the day, had many of those things worked out, I wouldn't have gotten Suits, which we're now in our 6th season. Who would have thought? Thank you. We're so lucky.
So the TIG's content is incredible.
Thank you.
It's so well done. You hear a lot about celebrity sites and all these things, but it is like, I go all the time, I read all the it's so well done. And initially, you were approached by someone else to start the site, but then you decided to do it on your own. Talk a little bit.
Well, you know what's so funny is and you guys will encounter this, and you probably do, is when you're being pulled in so many different directions and things at the onset sound like such a great idea, but when you really listen to your internal compass, it's very easy for you, if you're listening to it, to say, that's just not right. And you do that gut check. And this was exactly what happened to me with that experience, because a company had approached me and they basically just wanted to do MeghanMarkle.com and put up lots of cute outfits and profit off of all of them, all of which is fine, by the way, if that's what you're into. But for me, there was so much more that I wanted to share, and I really do have an organic and deep love of travel and of food and also of writing. You know, I love writing these think pieces and op-eds about self-empowerment on the site. So I severed ties with that company. I started developing the site on my own. And then, do you guys know the website, The Coveteur? So I'm really good friends with Jake Rosenberg, who's the creative director on it, and he had seen sort of the way that this company was putting my site together. He's like, I beg you, please do not go down this path. He's like, use our graphic designer from Coveteur, let them do the design aesthetic of the TIG, which we worked on painstakingly, and really putting my own personal thumbprint on it. It's my handwriting on the site. I mean, the logo is designed like a wine glass with the drop of the wine is the eye on the, oh, yeah. It's my baby, so I'm very proud of it still after 2 years. But no, I mean, I really think it was one of those moments that had I gone in that other direction with these people who had nothing but good intentions, really, but it wasn't organic to what I wanted to be doing, and I knew that in my core, the site would be completely different. And I think especially the surprise factor of it is that, you know, my castmate, Gina Torres, who plays Jessica on the show, she gave me some advice a couple years ago, and she will say it often. She calls me Nutmeg, but she'll be like, Nutmeg, just leave room for magic. And frankly, the moment that I did that, and even with the TIG, writing these pieces, I had no idea that, like, I sit there on 4th of July and say, I'm going to write a piece about Independence Day and talk about your self-worth. 4 days later, I got an email from one of the highest executives for UN Women saying they wanted to work with me. I thought it was a joke. I was like, the United Nations wants to work with me because I wrote this thing on my blog? But they did. And it was crazy. And it's those sort of things where it's like when you really follow what makes sense to you intrinsically, I think you end up on the right path.
I want to talk a little bit about your experience with UN Women. It was really amazing. I saw some of the videos that you did. So talk a little bit about that partnership, that role.
Well, yeah, you know, it's so funny. So they send this email and I, you know, people hadn't realized, especially at that time when I first started it, any of those emails, this is not the case now. So like, hello at the TIG, press at the TIG, they'd all come to my phone, right? So I'm sitting there fielding all these emails. Again, this is not the case now. So please. But it's, you know, and I would get these emails and I saw that one and I responded immediately and had a conference call with them. And I said, look, I have a 1 week break from filming. Can I come and intern at UN headquarters in New York? And there was this incredibly long pause on the phone because I don't think anyone had ever asked if they could come and intern at UN headquarters. And I was like, right, but I'm not filming and I've got time and I'll get your coffee. I just want to sit in on meetings. And they ended up getting me the clearance and they said, yes, that's what I did for my hiatus. And just really wanted to learn so much about the organization because I think anything I get involved with, I don't want to just show up on a red carpet for a cause and wave my hand without knowing what I'm really doing there and why it's important for me to be there. And the same to be said with UN Women. Of course, the UN's an incredible organization, but I'm not just going to tack my name onto it and not really know something purpose-driven is happening for me. So I started working with them, went to Rwanda for a field mission to meet with female parliamentarians in Rwanda. It's an incredible country which has the highest percentage of female parliamentarians of any government in the world. 64% of their Congress is female, which is amazing. And so I did that trip with them, and then it just continued to open so many doors. And I think, you know, any sort of speaking engagements I've done about women's rights has really come from that moment initially. And then I started working with World Vision as their global ambassador and went to Rwanda purely out of coincidence again this past year. And then I'm going to India in January to work on a women's program there that I'm really excited about.
Amazing. We actually talked a lot today about causes and how important they are to not just people, but brands, millennials getting jobs. Everyone wants to be part of something bigger. So tell us a little bit about World Vision and what they do.
Yeah, well, I mean, World Vision, their biggest platform is really just trying to end child poverty and hunger. And while I think my biggest focus has been gender equality and women's rights, all starting from something that happened when I was really young. When I was 11 years old, there was a commercial that I found to be sexist, and I wrote these letters to have the commercial changed, and the commercial got changed. And that was this moment where very opinionated little spirit was outspoken then, and that has, I think, carried with me for quite a long time. But, World Vision has been great because they had reached out to me and they gave me the opportunity to not just connect to something that they already had set up, but instead to say, what's important to you? What do you really want to work on? And so, I like to take risks, as I think you guys can tell. If any of you are pursuing acting, you do too. But I think for me, what was so interesting is maybe 3 years ago, I had seen a video about many young women dropping out of school in these small towns outside of, in small townships in India because they were getting their period and they had nowhere to go and change any sanitary napkin or anything else like that. And immediately, no one wants to talk about it because you're talking about periods, which is exactly why we should talk about it.
We literally have talked about periods a lot today, which is hilarious.
Have you?
Ironically.
I'm so sorry.
No,
I
it's
see the 3 guys in the background are like, oh my God, why is she doing it? But here's the thing. It's like, fine. It's not dinner party conversation when people want to talk about water and clean water initiatives. But frankly, the fact that all of these young girls at the age of 12 or 13 are dropping out of school purely because they don't have a place to feel comfortable because something very natural is happening to their body is a problem that we can easily fix. And so the fact that no one wants to talk about it is why I want to talk about it and why I'm going to India in January to do everything I can and try to get a corporate sponsor, like always. Whatever it is, it's like if there is a problem out there and you know that it seems nonsensical and we have the means to talk about it and not just retweet it and not just come up with some hashtag, but to really find the call to action and do something about it, then I completely believe that it's our responsibility to do it. We're so privileged. And it also, in a really incredible way, puts an amazing perspective to the things in our lives that seem so huge. And at the end of the day, while it's all important, I think being able to give back and do any sort of humanitarian work will make your life feel a lot more balanced because you realize where your priorities should be, maybe,
Absolutely. And so a lot of your platform is social media. So it allows you to have a big voice and reach lots of people.
Who knew? I mean, they asked us to get on Instagram when Suits started. I had no idea what I was doing on Instagram. And then it became really fun. And then it became something where it's like, I don't want my social media to feel like a news feed. So just like with the TIG, there'll be recipes and there'll be my dog's getting a bath and all sorts of silly stuff that's part of my day to day. But in the same token, being of service is part of my day to day also. So you find the balance and kind of weave it all in there.
So for most successful people, diversification in their portfolios and their jobs and their, we've talked a lot today about the multi-tab, multi-hyphenate slashies who have multiple things going on. And so you obviously a successful actress, but you also have the TIG. How do you balance those? And are you looking to do more things? Like, how is that working for you?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I don't know anyone who just does one thing anymore.
Right?
Right? Like, and as women, I don't think we've ever just done one thing. We do it all. And so I think part of that is, look, if it's important to you, you make the time for it. And so with that said, I would find myself, especially in the first year of the TIG, writing so much of the content sitting in my trailer, waiting for my next scene and going, okay, I gotta type something up. You just make it work, and then the moment that you don't feel passionate about it, then maybe that's when you do a check-in with yourself and see if it's worth continuing doing. But, also someone had said to me really early on with acting, and I think this also applies to a lot of things now because it's so easy for us to get distracted and to lose interest. But they said, don't give it 5 minutes if you're not going to give it 5 years. I know 5 years sounds like a long time. Oh my gosh. But it's really not. And it flies by. And that stick-to-itiveness in many cases is what makes you beat out the rest of the crowd because people, for whatever reason, end up dropping out of things or giving up or shifting gears. But if it's something that you're passionate about, don't invest 5 minutes of your very precious, valuable time if you're not going to invest 5 years of it. And I think that's when you really see your long-term goals pay off.
Well, so I hear you're hiring at the TIG. Maybe got some applicants out here.
That's so true. I just had the longest lunch talking about this exact thing.
So you're growing. So talk about, who are you looking to hire? How are you looking to expand?
It's time. It's time. again, you can see it's like my baby. Oh God. But up until this point, it's like, sure, it can be a blog and this site, or it can be this thing that is really becoming a brand much bigger than me. And there, you know, as I shared with you, I didn't want MeghanMarkle.com. I don't want this to just be me. I want this to be a community much greater than that. So beyond bringing on writers or other people who want to share great content and who understand the voice of the site, which is like talking to a girlfriend and conversational and inspiring. I've always sort of crafted it like aspirational girl next door. Like you can aspire for it, but you could totally attain it too. There are no $100 candles on my site. That's so obnoxious. I just want things that you can have. And so I want people who really understand that ethos and enjoy sort of the fun and frivolity of it all. And then I've got to find like my head honcho person, which is going to take some time, because that's talk about a relationship, a strong partnership. But I think it's worth it, and I think it's definitely time for it. So if you know of anybody, let me know.
And there is two schools of thought on the MeghanMarkle.com versus the brand. So, you know, and I think people struggle with that, because I think, you know, a lot of people are up and coming bloggers. Is your site called myname.com, or is your site a bigger brand, something that's bigger than yourselves? And I think that's a decision people have to make for themselves. And I think pros and cons to both.
Yeah. And I think, you know, for me, I was really clear on, I had been fortunate enough after so long of a time struggling as an auditioning actor. I mean, I shared this story on, do you guys know that magazine Darling? I love
Darling.
That magazine. Isn't it so great? I saw it in Anthropology, and I emailed, I don't know, I like flipped to the back page and I emailed press or someone there. I was like, hi, I would just love to work with you guys. And I ended up writing a piece for them. And one of the stories that I shared in it was when I was auditioning, I had the most beat up, hand-me-down, but awesome Ford Explorer Sport. You don't understand how much I love this car. And it, in the morning would start and it sounded like a steamboat engine. This thing was like on its last leg. My license plate in the front was hanging on with a bungee cord. And then this just epic day happened where the lock stopped opening with the key and the clicker wouldn't open the front doors. And I couldn't afford to fix this car, and this was how I got from one audition to the other. So this was, you know, this was my girl. She was my ride or die car. And what I would start to do was literally go to these auditions, park at the back of the parking lot, and then I could open my trunk. For whatever reason, the trunk would still open with the key. Open my trunk and like play it off, like look around and be like, oh, I'm just digging for a headshot or a highlighter. Crawl into the back of my car, pull the trunk, and then climb to the front seat to drive off to my next audition. This, by the way, went on for 5 months. But it's the stuff that we do. And it's part of why I think, like, why I connected things like Darling magazine, or, you know, part of why I think it's really important to have that candid quality on the TIG, is that you have to share stories like that. Suits is not what I never thought my life would be that awesome. I never thought that I'd have a show that went for this long. That's crazy. I was the girl that auditioned and crawled in through the back seat of my car. So, you know, I think all of those pieces of it, if you're real about it and you don't just say like, oh yeah, this is so fabulous, I have a stylist and I have all this stuff. It's like every day I'm like, there's a fruit basket in my trailer. What? It's all still exciting. And I think when you're really like grateful for those little things and you don't lose sight of that is when you can enjoy it, you know, and that's the point. I'm pretty certain the whole point is to just enjoy this silly little life ride that we're all on.
I love it. I want to talk a little bit about, on the TIG, the brand collaborations you do, and a little bit about how you choose the ones that you do, how you integrate it in, because it all feels very authentic to you.
I mean, I've made it a really specific point to not have any advertising on the TIG. For me, I'm very sensitive to the aesthetic. Yep. Jake from Covature, I'm sure, appreciates that because he's the one that told me that, although they have a lot of ad sales on their stuff now, but it's a very different vibe, obviously. And so I like keeping it that way. If there's anything in there, it's integrated, and there's a really big push for me to work with female entrepreneurs, young startup brands, people who have a give back element to the companies that they do, and then all the influencers that I interview on this site, be it friends or, you know, high profile people that I reach out to, there always has to be some sort of philanthropic element as well. Like, I think it's great if you're fabulous, but I think you're more fabulous if you do something of value in this world. And so that is part of what I really try to harness on this site in terms of pushing out those kinds of people so that you get an introduction to Fatima Bhutto, for example, or, you know, like people that you might not have heard about, but you should. And that's kind of how I do it.
And so a lot of the women in the audience are launching blogs, and they might not necessarily have the insider access that you do, but what are some tips, I mean, as you were starting the TIG, that you've learned along the way for people who are just starting out with their blog?
Oh, just ask. I mean, like, you literally, like, this blind outreach, again, it's like a numbers game. It's no different than auditioning, right? Like, at a certain point, someone will say yes. So it was the same thing with the TIG. No one knew what the heck the TIG was at the beginning, and, you know, and it was right after I launched the TIG, maybe like a month after that, Blake Lively launched Preserve, and it was like, that's Blake Lively! And I was there with the TIG going, well, who wants to talk to me about this little site? But I just kept putting out outreach, and I was writing a lot of personal emails, and, you know, at that same time, yes, some people love Suits, some people haven't a clue what Suits is, you know, so the fact that it seems like I have more of an in really wasn't the case. I just was blindly emailing one person after another to get Heidi Klum's assistant's email to be like, hi, can I interview her for my website? I don't know Heidi Klum, but she said yes. And so I think it's really just that. It's just like putting out more and more feelers until you get what you want, and also being okay with a no. I also think there's some real value in the same way that I was saying, to make that impact on a room, whether you get that job or you get that part, just to have a lasting impression in that way. There's so many companies that I can think of that they try once, they'd send an email asking to be on the TIG, and maybe the timing wasn't right, or maybe it wasn't the right fit at that moment, but the ones that circled back, I featured them. And the ones that I loved what they were saying, and it was clearly not some stock email, and stock emails with typos, forget it.
Terrible. Forget it.
You know, like, there's just no way, but that happens more often than you think. Proofread, please. But I think, you know, other than that, like, it's really just, it's just not being afraid.
I love that. I think it's so true. I always like joke, I'm like 60% of my success is attributed to following up. Like, follow up, send the emails, cold outreach, like you said. I mean, the fact that you do cold outreach, it's like we all do cold outreach.
We all do cold outreach.
Yeah.
And sometimes things just slip through the cracks, or you have someone else who like didn't get that email. Just send it the second time. It doesn't matter. And also I send so many handwritten thank you notes. And I think because we are all so tech savvy and because we live in that world, I can't tell you how few of them I get, but the ones that I do, 100% end up remembering that person and wanting to work with them, because I just think it's such a classy touch.
I want to talk a little bit about staying inspired. You're so busy, you have so much going on, yet your content's always new and fresh and innovating. How do you stay inspired?
You know, Instagram, worst answer ever. No, but I do so many searches. You know, I spend so much time either at work or in transit, right? Like, I flew in last night from London. I'm leaving from here to go back to Toronto because we're still filming the last 3 episodes of season 6, starting on Monday. So I think, like, for me, it's really about being so aware of what's going on around you. I mean, there's obviously so much inspiration just in this room and in talking to people. You never know who you're going to meet. Yeah, I'm probably like you guys, doing like late night Instagram searches of what's trending. I'm like, that's cool. Anything really. And I think, like, I read everything from, I mean, I don't read trash mags, but I read like The Economist. I know, might not sound so interesting, but you always find some little gems in there. Things like Darling. So it runs the gamut, but I think any of those sort of things will plant a seed that will inspire you to want to do something different. But also just talking to your girlfriends. You know, it's like those personal relationships are always going to trigger something else that makes you go like, I should write about that, or I should put that up there. You know, I know nothing about nail art, for example, but I have friends that do, so that's certainly going to be a way that I'm able to share that same thing or get inspired in a way that I wouldn't normally be.
Well, and I think that's a really good tip for people who are starting out with their blog, is like, you don't have to be the expert on everything. Find the experts, and sometimes they're friends, which is awesome.
And nor should you be. And I mean, I think that's for me, that's part of how I crafted the TIG, is like, how on earth am I expected to know everything about everything? I don't. And by the way, that's way too much pressure. I don't purport to know everything about everything, and I wouldn't want to. The fun part of this whole thing is being able to say, but she does, and how cool is she? And here you go, take the reins, whomever, and share with them all this great stuff. I mean, I think that's part of the whole idea when you're starting a blog is you're starting a community. You know, it's really not just about you, and if your intent is solely to make money, I also don't think that is going to be the most long-lasting way to do it. You know, it has to be something that you're passionate about, because otherwise, just the business element of it alone, it has to be something that really feeds you at the end of the day, or it's just a job. It's not what you want to be investing all of your time in every day. You know, a job is great, but like a job that you're passionate about is much greater.
I've been asking a lot of the panelists this, but sort of the best piece of advice you've gotten along the way, or something that really stuck with you, that helped you out.
For business? For life?
Both.
All of
Personal,
it.
professional, it's all a
All of
mix,
it.
right?
They overlap so much, isn't it crazy? I hear my mom's voice in my head. That's probably because I was just on the phone with her as we were. I was like,
she's like, I have to talk to my mom. Mom, always take mom's call.
I know. I was like, Mom, I gotta go. I think for me, though, the most lasting and the one that I stick with and think about every single day is that same idea of being kind to yourself. For business or anything else, it's like you're gonna have hiccups, you're gonna have typos. I've had them, as much as they drive me crazy. You know, all those little things that you're like, oh, why did that happen? Or what a misstep, or that was so dumb. It's fine. And I think, you know, one person had said to me, if we just talk to ourselves the way we talk to our best friends, can you imagine how much nicer we would be to ourselves? Like, I would never be as nasty to Lindsay, my best friend. I would never in a million years say to her some of the things that I say to myself when I'm beating myself up over a mistake. And so if we treat ourselves like our own best friends, I think that it's like having the best cheerleader ever with you, which helps you get through any of those work hurdles or those life hurdles, because you always have yourself championing yourself, funny enough. But that kindness is really key, and it seems so simple, but it really is a game changer.
Well, and I think when you run the company, like, no one's telling you good job.
At all.
You're telling everyone else good job, and like having that mentality of being like sort of your best friend and your worst critic at the same time to make yourself get better along with it is so important, because like that is the reality. Like, you know, when a few friends have gone freelance and they're just like, I just don't know if I'm doing it right. I'm like getting this bad feedback. I'm like, that's because you don't have the people pushing you along. So it's hard when you're an entrepreneur.
And you can end to ask too. I mean, that's part of it too. Having a mentor, I think, is really great. I don't have one. I just said that as though that's like something I have. I don't have one. I would love a mentor. If you could think of anyone for me for that.
Can we
too.
get her a mentor?
I need a mentor. I need a CE. I need some writers. You guys, I need a lot of help. But, you know, I think like if you don't have that soundboard, then let that be your friend, you know, someone that you can trust, that if you're not getting the pep talk because, as you said, you're your own boss, then you have to ask someone like, is this resonating? Does this seem right? Was that silly? Someone that you really trust, I think, yeah, it's invaluable.
Yeah, and it's funny. So I don't have a mentor either. You're not alone. And that's part of the reason I started creating Cultivate. It was really like, I never had that. And so I was like, there has to be other women out there going through what I'm going through. And there clearly are. So it's leaning on your friends, I think, is so, I love that.
Yeah, it's so key.
So we're going to take a few questions from the audience. Who has a question?
They have no questions. They just want their cocktails.
I think you like dropped all the knowledge. Anyone?
I'm a chatty gal.
One question.
I know.
Guys.
Not even a question about Mike Ross. That surprises me. I got to tell you, there's nowhere I can go without people going, oh, no, please tell me it's not a Mike Ross question.
We're going to get you a mic. We're going to run it over. If you could stand up. Awesome. Hi. We're going to have to get more drinks in you guys. Loosen you up. Just kidding.
I swear, 4 people asked me, like, do you want some champagne? Do you want some champagne? Megan, do you want some champagne? I was like, no, I'm good. No, I'm good. No, I'm good.
Success.
And then it just appears. I was like, oh my God.
I would have gotten you the wine. It would have been so appropriate.
Bubbles are always a win. Hi, what's your name?
Hi, my name is Alia.
Hi.
Today I've kind of just noticed we've talked a lot about
Can
motivation.
you bring it closer?
Sorry.
I said today I've noticed that we've talked a lot about motivation and kind of following your gut. Megan, I was wondering if you could speak a little bit to the very conservative part of business that's still very much alive, and how you manage feminism and being feminine.
Oh, this one is so interesting. That's a great question. Thank you. And it's not about Mike Ross. You know, I just think they are not mutually exclusive. For those of you who didn't hear, she was asking about how you balance being a feminist and being feminine. And I had written an article for the Irish Independent, which is a big newspaper in Ireland, about that exact thing, because I've been really fortunate enough to just meet with a lot of really powerful and incredible women. I was speaking at One Young World in Ottawa a couple weeks ago, and I was there with Mary Robinson, who was the former president of Ireland. And my favorite is these moments, like between her, and I'd seen Angela Merkel as well before, and before these events, either at the UN or whatever else, and you see these powerhouse women going like, where's my compact? I need to put on my lipstick. Is my lipstick okay? And it's one of those things where it's like, yes, because of course, you can still be a woman who wants to look beautiful and present well, and it doesn't lessen the fact that you are standing up for something that is incredibly important and about the equality of the sexes or whatever else you happen to be campaigning for. I think there's this misconception that if you're a feminist that maybe you need to wear, like I did an interview, I was on Larry King, politicking, and I was talking about this, and everyone said, what are you going to wear for Larry King? Oh my God, are you going to wear a suit? I'm like, no, I'm not going to wear a suit. I'm going to dress like I always do and talk about the same things. You don't have to play dress up to be a feminist. You are a feminist exactly as you are. And so I think for me, it's not even a question of how you reconcile. It's just what it is. And I love being a woman, a feminist, and I love being girly too. So
and
they can all
boss.
coexist. Yeah, I love being a girl boss.
Yeah. Any other questions? All right. Well, sorry. Front row.
Hi.
Do you want to stand up? Or, sorry,
Yeah,
putting you on the spot.
do it. Hi. I'm a big fan. Thanks. What's your name? Hi, Chelsea. To join the TIG team? hello@thetig.com.
Boom.
In the subject, just say, hi, Dan. Dan's my right-hand man. He's amazing. Yeah, for sure. And just say it's Chelsea, and Megan said that I should email you. Okay, cool.
Yes, let's get some jobs. I love it.
I need some people.
Well, it was such an honor interviewing you. Thank you so much. Let's give it up for Megan.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Bye.